The first time that I watched my Westerner friend give her parents her opinions, an honest feedback, I remember I was so shocked. And the part that really got me was the fact that her parents actually listened. They even thanked her for it. They said, "Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us." In my family, that is called talking back, and there will be consequences. Hello, my darlings. Welcome to Tea O'Clock, where we drink tea and talk about life. My tea of the day is a black tea from Sui Giang in Bai, Vietnam, an area with ancient tea trees that grow wild. And this was made from the snow shan cultivar or Camellia sinensis var. Assamica. And the tea leaves are massive. Like, look at it. I'm going to put a close-up shot on the screen so you can see how big these tea leaves are. I'm very excited for it. So I've been thinking about this a lot ever since I made that video about how my dad thought I was showing off, whereas to me, I was just sharing. So I realized that this is a gap in how my parents' generation communicates and how mine does. So my parents grew up in poor post-war Vietnam, and they really had to build their life from nothing. So to them, they think they've seen it all, and they want to raise us the way they know through sharing their experience by setting examples. And I think that's great. However, I was born and grew up in a world completely different from theirs. Like, even with just the technology that we have these days, for example, it is beyond what they could have imagined when they were growing up. And I think that changes the way that we think, it changes our worldview, and more importantly, it changes our communication. My late mother would get so frustrated with me whenever I try to share with her my opinions. She would say, nuôi nó lớn, cho nó ăn học, rồi bây giờ nó cãi mình, which would be translated as, I raised her, I sent her to school, now she talked back at me. And I would get frustrated too because I was just trying to share what I thought was right, but I wouldn't hear any of it. Or there's that classic line that Vietnamese elders love to throw at us. Con nít thì biết cái gì? What would you kids know? And it will be said to grown adults like me, even now. In the West, communication is inherently democratic. And this is because of the language. We have pronouns like I and you, which are neutral. They don't really reflect the social position of the people in that exchange. Whereas in Vietnamese, the way that we refer to ourselves and the way that we refer to others inherently carry social position and power dynamic. The moment we open our mouth, we immediately establish our position in that social exchange, which also means that in the Vietnamese language, true equality in a conversation isn't just culturally challenging, it is also grammatically difficult. It feels inherently wrong to argue with an older person simply because the language makes it very challenging to do so. I can have all the education in the world. I can show them the fact, and they would still doubt me. They would rather take someone else's word, a stranger on the street, a neighbor, before they even consider mine. I was taught at school to always listen to your parents or to someone older than you because they would have more experience, they would know more about the world, and that we can learn from them. And I did. And I'm truly thankful that I have parents who were loving and supportive, um, who wanted to be a good model for us. But here's the thing, I listened to them, but I wasn't hurt by them. And I get it. My parents, as I said, grew up poor and didn't have enough guidance when they were growing up from their own parents. No one ever sat them down and asked them how they felt, what their opinions were, or to simply share their feelings. And they turn out fine, or seemingly fine. On the outside, they're doing just okay, but there's chaos inside. just like me. But unlike me, I have years left to learn. I have therapists, I have friends, and I have the internet to vent to. But my parents, they don't really have anyone. Their friends carry the same wound and would rather stay silent than trying to explain themselves. And we, their children, we don't have the time, we don't have the patience to really sit with what they have to carry. We get frustrated trying to teach them how to use the smartphones. We rolled our eyes at their old habits. Just as they think that we don't know enough about the world, we think they are outdated, old fashioned, and we distance ourselves away from them. And the digital age complicates this even more. Like I've said before, like it changes the way that we think and communicate so much. Online scams are a perfect example of this. My parents didn't grow up with all these technology things. The most advanced things that I've touched is a smartphone, and I literally had to FaceTime them to walk them through setting up their phones. So all these artificial intelligence or these voice phishings are very sophisticated for someone without digital literacy skills. A friend of mine literally had to call the police to stop his own mother from handing money to this Facebook friend that she made online. She would trust a stranger online. Her son, not so much. I have observed that there is a lonely epidemic in my parents' generation. And I think this explains why it's so easy for scammers to scam older people in Vietnam, like my friend's mother, because for all of their bad intentions, the scammer actually took the time to listen to her and gave her their full attention, unlike her son. And then there's my generation, raised in an Asian household, educated and now working in the West. Not communicating is a flaw. At work, in relationships, with friends, we are just expected to say the thing. I have a friend who's also a Vietnamese immigrant living in Canada, and she has a 10-year-old son. And I was watching her disciplining him. She was trying to stop him from doing something, but then she would also have to let him explain himself, and they would eventually arrive somewhere in the middle. So at 10-year-old, this little boy managed to have a full conversation, a full negotiation with his mother that even I, a full grown adult, rarely had a chance to have with my dad. Then she turned to me and she said, my parents would never. It was either you listen or you get a beating. And we both laughed because it was so true. We grew up under that strictness, that tough love. And now we are trying to navigate the world as gently as we can. Looking back, I think I had a lot of unfair expectations for my parents. I wanted them to be just like my Westerner friends' parents, who were willing to have an open and honest conversation with their children. I had wanted that so badly for my own in my family that I sort of forced it upon my parents, completely ignoring that Vietnam is a very different social, cultural environment compared to the West. And my parents are completely different from my Westerner friends' parents, obviously. So I sort of approach it from a very rigid way, demanding from them that democracy, that equality in a conversation. I was demanding them in a way that probably came across as rude and disrespectful, which they could not accept. Why should they? They were operating from a different mindset. In a Vietnamese household, you have to approach a conversation with more flexibility and softness. These days, when I talk to my dad, instead of dumping all the facts on the table and then walking away, expecting him to just absorb all the information that I share with him, I actually take the time to ask him questions and ask him for advice. I approach this from a very simple mindset. I want to understand his thoughts and his worldview. Only then I will share mine. And this has completely changed the dynamic of our conversation. It draws more out of him. I think that this approach respects the cultural hierarchy that is very deeply ingrained in our society, but it still enables a two-way dialogue whereby both sides feel listened and heard. And through this, I've also come to a very striking realization that I don't actually know my dad that well, at least in the way that I thought I did. I never really got to know my mom that way before she passed. When she was alive, she was just my mom, not quite the whole person, not someone with a past, hopes, dreams, fears. And I never got the chance to ask her these questions and to fully understand her as a complete human being before she became my mom. And it is honestly my biggest regret in life. I only have my dad left, so I don't want to repeat that same mistake. So I'm trying to do my best to understand him when I still have the time. Lately, though, I noticed that my dad has softened more. He's letting me into the conversations more. He's asking for my opinions and occasionally even taking my advice. I think this is because he started seeing the work that I do out in the world. And I don't mean grand things. It's just the fact that I'm able to, for example, live by myself in a foreign country and seem to be doing fine. I have a job, I can rent a place, all of the adult things, which to him is the proof that she's grown up now and she can take care of herself. So the shift has made me realize what is truly hiding underneath all of this layer of communication gap. It is, in fact, distrust. Our parents' generation tend to not have good faith in the fact that we would do well. But I also think it's deeper than that. They don't trust that they did a good job raising us. It's only when they see tangible evidence that we can thrive on our own that they can finally breathe and feel relieved that they succeeded. It's definitely not easy. But communication is a two-way street. If we want to be listened and heard and understood, we ourselves have to listen, hear, understand. And as hard as it is to sit with, it is actually easier for us to change first before expecting our parents to change. There's a saying, old habits die hard. Our parents have a lifetime of patterns and habits behind them, whereas we have a lifetime ahead to adapt. So I'm trying to be as gentle with him as I can in the same way that I'm being gentle with myself. The fact that I even get to sit here, drink tea, reflect, talk to the world about my feelings is thanks to my parents surviving those difficult years and doing a good job in raising me to be someone I am today. So I owe them the kindness that they rightfully deserve. Thank you for joining me today in my tea session. If you like my content, please don't forget to subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and click that notification bell. Until next time, bye bye.